where I can grow as well too. So
Awesome.
Awesome. Miss Amanda, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, welcome, ladies, and thank y'all for spending the evening with us. We know that development is always an interesting topic to start with, and something that you can learn as a lifelong skill, especially it'll take you from place to place. I know HWNT, we've relied a lot upon our development, upon our grant making, upon our individual donations, but this also continues and feeds through. So tonight I structured this workshop as more kind of dialogue than necessarily presentation. I do have some presentation that I'll go through, but just to kind of get a feel of who's already here and what your experience with development and your thought process is. Can y'all just tell me what you think development is and how you see HWNT using it? Because all of our chapters are a little bit different and we do things a little bit differently in each one, but just to take a quick temperature check, if anybody wants to jump in and say how in their chapter they've been doing development or what development means to you. I know we're not shy here. And y'all got to remember, I'm a social worker, so I'm okay with silence and voids. I'll fill some space.
Can I go?
Yeah.
You guys can hear me okay, right? Okay. So I think development has two parts. So I think it's raising funds for the organization for your various programs. Every chapter is different. But I know for us, we try to do professional development for our own ladies in our organization. Mm-hmm. And so for us, that's kind of some things that we do. We don't have a development person, but in the past when we had, they were responsible for getting us those sponsorships, that funding, kind of keeping up, doing those grant applications and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, not every chapter can have a development chair right now, or every chapter is fit for one. Also, it's time consuming. Thank you for sharing.
I wanted to add something as well too. Like part of development though is as far as like growing as well too, but it's very rare, especially here in South Texas. So it's very limited in the area. So and Angie was indicating like they used to have one and it is very time consuming. Because I work for the city, I've learned part of the like personal development or professional development. So that's the division that I currently work in. And I'm just learning all the different things that can help, you know, on personal level, all the way to professional level. So, but it is very rare here in South Texas to even find anyone in that field.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Liliana?
Hi. I'm the chair for the Corpus Christi chapter. Angelita is the vice chair of marketing. She forgot to introduce herself. She's the one
I'm so sorry.
I know.
I thought everybody knew me.
She's the one that actually got me into HWNT in 2017. So if it wasn't for her, I would not be here. Love you, Ange. What I would take for development is that the position for board in HWNT is very extensive. And so I feel like it would be very beneficial if it was as a co-chair position. That's something that Angie actually brought that up in the past, because it does take two people to do that much of work, because one is professional, one is personal, and they both take very different entities. And I know funding is very important for us because we need to raise money in order to keep going and give money to our Lip Girls. But in order to do that, we have to know ladies that are, you know, big ballers in their career, and also men that are willing to sponsor and donate and kind of advocate for what they do to keep us going.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty. Well, thank y'all for your perspectives on what you think development is. I think that's a really good access point for us to know. And also, I mean, we may not see development, or some people may not have the title of fundraiser or development director and those types of things, but we all are responsible for development. We're all responsible for bringing in either funding or looking at different things. I'm going to start this presentation just so that I can not get off track, because that happens a lot. And as these ladies well know me, I do talk a lot, and my Mac is not working with me. Yay. Yay. Oh. Oh, no. Sorry. Not to. Okay. Okay. Sandra, I may just send this presentation to you because my privacy firewalls are not allowing me to do things. So I'm just going to send this to you right quick.
Send it to my Gmail.
Okay. Sorry, I know this is being recorded live. Okay. Technology woes. Okay. So this is why I don't like Macs, because I don't know them very well. They're not fun to work with. But my boss loves it, so it works for me. Okay, so one of the first things that we think about when we talk about development is it is exactly what you'll mention, understanding what fundraising means, what asset development means, but how can we also know who and what comes apart. The first thing when we talk about development is really getting to know your assets, getting to know the things that are around you and the people that are around you in order to be able to move forward with any type of fundraising. We know, especially for Hispanic Women's Network of Texas, we're mostly, what are we mostly fundraising for? That each chapter has in common.
Scholarships.
Scholarships.
The LIT program.
The LIT program, program development. I know we have a lot of professional development programming that we ask for also. What else do we fundraise for? Mostly from that. I think mostly for that.
Administrative.
Administrative, thank you. That's a big one. How do we have capacity? Do we as an organization have capacity to be able to make sure that all the things that we need are done? So like our wonderful technology. Thank you. Yes. Let's go to, see, that was my pretty little, all big ideas of development. You can go down to getting to know your assets. So in this, who do you think in HWNT is your biggest asset?
Your members.
Your members? Your members are, but who are also the people that are doing most of the work?
Us,
We're 100% volunteer, right?
board members,
Board members. And what do our board members bring to us?
their time, their energy.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge.
Yeah. Their energy. What was that, Belinda?
Their
Belinda?
knowledge.
Yes. Ah, wonderful.
Resources.
Mm-hmm. Resources, everything else. Now, when we think development and talking about resources, and especially for your board, what kind of resources come to mind first?
The network, who they know.
Who they know. Yeah. Who they know. What about, how about what they have available to them? So what are in their immediate surroundings? We often talk about, you know, one of the great things about HWNT is that we are this kind of membership and sisterhood, and everybody's always so willing to open their own home for events and things like that. So that's also an asset that a board member can bring. Also, what else do board members bring? Everybody has a different career, has a different ideology. So they all bring those things. Do you want to go to the next slide? So the functions of a board of directors and board members is not only just to bring those things, those resources and the actions, but I think this also gets lost a lot of the time. One of the things that one of my great mentors always taught me was when you're looking at a board and when you're doing nonprofit board membership, when you're building your board and thinking about all of the different types of skill sets that you need to build a board. What kind of skills do you think that you need for a beginning nonprofit board? Who do you want to be able to be there with you? And what resources do you think would be beneficial?
Can you ask that again? Sorry.
Okay. So what kind of skill sets do you need? So I'll give you all an example. Would you need a attorney on your board of directors?
That would be great.
That's a benefit, right? You need a banker, somebody to do some of your treasury work, or somebody who has some type of fund management, asset management skill set that can come through. In building that piece, all of those individuals bring something to the table. So the three main functions of a functioning board of directors is that their main purpose is to either give money or give time, but they're constantly giving to either get money or get resources using their allocations, using their own networks also to bring to the board, or it's time for them to get off. If they're not doing one of the two things, then that's not the board for them. Because you also have to have a passionate skill set to be able to do the work that we do. This is great, but if they've run out of ways to give and to get, then we've got to keep that succession line going through. And so that was one of the things that I've always kind of talked about, that my mentor and I talk about quite frequently, is as we're looking at board members, especially now, and how many nonprofits are out there and things that we have to compete, we always have to look at who your board and how your board is healthy and moving. So either they're giving, they're getting, or they're getting off. And so that's one of the main keys. It doesn't seem like it's fund development key off, but it is, especially when we're working through things. The next thing that with fund development that I often use is a board of directors asset survey. So Hendra, if you want to skip to the next slide. And stop me anytime y'all have questions or y'all want to interject, please feel free. So an asset survey helps us to be able to know who is on your board and what assets they have. Angelita, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I had a question. So like on the board, you're saying give, get, or get off. So like would wanting or being open to learning be a part of the get or the give or something like that?
Open to learning is one, because one of the things to remember, and one of the beautiful things that I've always said about HWNT is one of the few organizations where your learning curve is high, where we learn how to be board members, where we learn how to build ourselves and our network. So that can be one. But if that's an individual, what I would also suggest, which sometimes happens naturally within our board, is matching them up with probably an older outgoing board member to help them learn those transitions. It's not one of the things that we've done officially as an organization, but as individual chapters, it's helpful. And that's one of the things that I've seen with some of the other nonprofit boards that I've been on and I work with, is that mentorship and that succession planning helps. So, and their give can be a small give. That's how we build, and that's how we create opportunities. Because later on, even if they're a young and their early type of career, you know, a give can be $20, $100, something like that. Something that keeps giving them through, but they're constantly learning how to cultivate resources, how to talk to people. That's helpful. So when I say give, get, or get off, it's defined by you, defined by the chair, defined by the organization.
Okay.
Okay. I know that was
Thank
a long answer. you, because we do want to be able to create and cultivate leaders to not only continue on our particular boards with HWNT, moving towards state board, but also as we move into other boards in the organization. So the other thing that I like to do is really get an asset survey. An asset survey of your board members really helps them to be able to solidify their position on the board and how you're thinking about them, not only within their particular role. So everybody has a network of their own. So within this asset survey, they can list as long as they're comfortable, they can list their contacts, they can list their resources, and they can list what they're willing to do with those contacts and resources. Sometimes people get a little cringy about it. I do the same thing because as a fundraiser, those are my contacts. I protect them as much. What your response can be to that is that I want you to take this piece of paper, really think about it on your own. You don't have to share that with me, but you can go ahead and start brainstorming on your own how you're going to help the organization and what are you willing to help the organization move forward with as a board member. Any questions so far? No. The next slide. The next slide, I have a couple of sample asset survey questions. Very, very short. And what I like to start doing is because it starts getting people into a mindset. I like to ask them the question of, what is good in the community that you enjoy and why, or why have you joined this board? So it gets them start thinking about their reasoning and the connection of why they're there. The second question is, are there any particular issues or concerns you want to work on? So automatically and immediately, you're getting them to think about what are any pitfalls that they're going to see, especially when it comes to asset development, or things that they're afraid of. A lot of people, sometimes the hardest thing to do for many people is to ask somebody else for money. And that's especially in our Latino culture. That's in the way that we were raised. We always think, okay, I can do this on my own. I can do that. We take those things with us. But in the nonprofit space, that kind of goes away because we can't do the amazing, wonderful work that we do alone. And that costs money. And so those organizations need to be able to help us. And that means that we need to be able to ask too, what it does and how it works through. And so if you're one of you, that gives you an opportunity for your board members to think like, I really don't like asking other people for money. Okay, well, I'm here, I can help. Lillian?
We're recently going through that with our board right now. Mm-hmm. It is awkward to ask for money, mm-hmm. but I feel like a way that helps in order to solidify that, maybe having a uniform letter template or a script that maybe all of us can use as a whole. So that way, when we do assign a board member to assist us in getting a hold of a contact or a sponsor, they won't be shy because there's no excuse because we have everything for you.
Yes, I love a good form and a template. And that is about 90% of grant writing is having a template form and being able to recycle the information over and over again. So that's great. Angelita?
I want to piggyback off of what Lily said. That is a really big difficulty for a lot of us. Because I guess the way you go about it is difficult, especially if you don't know the person. But I feel like if you know the person, I feel like it should not necessarily be easy, but be more comfortable. But I think that having something like that can help because that is a hard part for us right now as we're starting our LIT program. We're having a hard time. And I think that what makes it difficult is that the peppy people are the ones like, oh, you do it. And it's like, we can't. we have like 10,000 other things to do. So my thought is like for a business professionalism class that I took, we had to practice in front of people. And I think I had talked to Iranda about that because she works for the city. And I had to practice those skits in front of my classmates on Zoom. And I don't know these people.
Yeah.
But I don't know if maybe that's a good thought to practice with them or something. Because right now with COVID, you're not really going to get a lot of that face-to-face time. And if you are, it's going to be very limited. So you got to kind of use it when you got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
I
think
love
that's
it.
another barrier too, is the COVID stuff going on right now.
Yeah.
We're all using technology, and that's it's a very big challenge for a lot of our seasoned ladies who don't know how to use a lot of this technology. And so we're all here to learn. So hopefully maybe we can practice that and see if that can help us.
Yeah, and on the funder side of that, that's a lot of what we're hearing, especially because of the cancellation of so many conferences. Our sponsors aren't getting the same ROI as they had done before. So they're really one of the bigger issues that we're having because of COVID is that they are only funding the organizations that they knew prior to COVID. So it makes it really difficult for a new individual to come in. So we'll talk a little bit later on. This is where your measurements and your metrics and your stories become really, really important in talking to a funder and moving that through. And so that's where we can really, really hone in on, especially because we have amazing Laura. Laura look at her transition. She was a LIP student and now she was president of the HWNT San Antonio chapter. That's an amazing story right there that I think that would be valuable and understanding our progression over the last 30 years of our organization. So it's putting it in those terms that can help. And so like Lillian stated, a script is really, really good. But also for your members who don't, I think that the practicing part is perfect. Taking maybe 5 to 10 minutes during board or doing a board education, letting your board members pitch each other. That would be really fantastic as well. I know that especially because we've got 80,000 other things going on, nobody really wants to do that. But if there are things that they want to develop on, because it's practicing its speech, its pattern, that's going to help them in their own professional career as well to be able to move forward through.
And I was gonna say, Laura and myself are examples of you can do it via email, because I hate asking for money. Last year, last year was really bad, and I was like, we had to cancel our gala. Of like, I got to an email and I emailed everybody and I go, this is our idea, and hey, it worked. I mean, we still were able to raise and clear more than we normally clear, 45,000. And I know Laura did an also Rebozo campaign and she raised over $15,000. So can be done via email. And I mean, it does help because I'm the quiet person. My mom would say otherwise, but I'm a quiet person. Yeah, I don't like asking for money in person, but I can email, I can fire up an email with lots of data. Yeah.
Yeah. A strong email with a picture or a video that you can attach to. Also, especially right now during this time, it's helpful. It's helpful. People, but I will say if it's a cold email going through, sometimes that's a little bit more difficult. Don't send them a video link yet. Just, a nice friendly email and saying, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this program. And then we've raised X number of money. We have had X number of girls going through. Even if your numbers are small, those impacts are going to be big. So you can say, hey, we graduated, 4 girls. And those 4 girls are now currently in college and they're coming through. That's still a big impact. You can say that those 4 girls have changed the trajectory of their family. So it's in the way that you frame things all the time.
One thing that helped me too was understand the why.
Mm-hmm.
I think the difficult part is, asking for money, because then the next part is they're going to ask you is why. Mm-hmm. Why should I give you money? Mm-hmm. And we are all passionate for HWNT, and it's putting that to to words, putting it to media, putting it to flyers, putting it to everything that you do, where you're able to nudge on that and say, this is why we do these kinds of things. That was very helpful for me. And in thinking backwards of, if somebody was going to ask me for money, how would I agree? And I give money to all little fundraisers and kids. It's really easy to get money out of me. It's really bad. I need to get a hold of that.
And I was gonna say one thing I
You're a
learned.
philanthropist.
One thing I learned from our past chair, Annette, she was like, make it easy for people to give you money. Don't make it hard. I mean, she taught me because she was trying to give me money for something. And I said, well, I don't have Zelle. She goes, girlfriend, you need to have PayPal, Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, whatever, checks, whatever people are trying to give you money with. So, and then Square. So I got all of them. So I'll make it easy to people to give me money. I will not turn down money.
Yeah, and that's the one thing you don't want to have barriers to individuals getting funding to you as well. Okay, I will go back to kind of just the quick overview of the sample asset survey, which is kind of bringing it full circle too, because the question on do you have particular gift capacities and skills? So if you have every board has somebody who has a gift of writing, who has a gift of turning a phrase, has the gift of being in front of the camera. Find those people, if they have those assets, then, put a script in front of them, shoot a quick, iPhone or video of them, and being able to do that as an option. Also, you just looking at those particular capacities and gifts. And so that's part of seeing who comes through. The other ones, again, is the network that we've talked about, strong relationships with associations, business, and institutions. People like to give money to people they know. Foundations like to give money to people they know. They want to know, because we've heard so many bad things in the world on, oh, the money doesn't go where it needs to go. Oh, this charity just started this charity because somebody wanted a Ferrari, which unfortunately happens a lot. In the DFW area alone, there are 30,000 nonprofits. And tomorrow, Thursday, is North Texas Giving Day, which is a one-day giving day that is sponsored by Communities Foundation Texas. Last year, they raised about $55 million that split between 4,000 organizations, nonprofit organizations. So the competition out there is large, but a lot of these nonprofits are also one-off nonprofits. So if a donor has had a bad experience with another nonprofit before, they may go ahead and they may be a little harder to work. But it goes back to Laura's point of the why, and us trying to find what's the relatable portion with somebody, and especially with somebody who is in a corporate capacity, to be able to tell them our why. And that's where your board members come into place. And it can be any organization. I've had a lot of board members who are like, well, I work for X, Y, and Z company, and we do, we make widgets in Japan, blah, blah, blah. We have nothing to do with it. Well, I'm sure at some point your CRA, which is your community relations advisor person, was able to give. And even if they give, $100 or $200 or whatever amount they give, that's beginning of a cultivation of a relationship with them. And so that's them getting to know you as an organization and getting to know the reason why and how it relates back to them. Because, if we're supporting a student of an employee of an organization, that's a great way to also introduce yourself as an organization. As a parent, it's easy to get the parents involved as well, because your parents want to give back. I know that a lot of our LIP parents always are really gracious and wonderful, but their organizations and their businesses also can give back. And even if they're not making a donation, maybe their corporation could. And that's an easier way to get funding in. It's always easier, especially if it's an employee of that organization, to introduce you to somebody in there so that you can start talking about what that organization does. Yes. Is it Arandina?
No, it's Iranda.
Iranda.
I just want to throw in a tip as well too, not only like your why as well too, but also explain to them, because I actually had an opportunity to be part of we did like an anti-coronavirus, we had to do like some funding in order to serve like over 1,000, close to 1,200 seniors in the COVID season. And what we did is we included, we told them that we would go ahead and put on our table or, anywhere we're gonna display those, Corona kits, we're gonna put their name on it. And we also supplied them with pictures so that way to show proof that we're passing everything out. And they really enjoyed that. But that's what we did to help them to know that their funds were going somewhere. I just wanted to throw in that tip.
Yeah, no, love it. The main thing on fundraising and fund development, I didn't put that in there just yet. We can switch to the other slide, is we've got to play on people's egos and corporations' egos also. They want their brand. They want their brand and their logo and all sorts of places to be able to look at what organizations they want to align with and how visible is that organization to be able to move them forward and to make those connections. So always a good idea. And also, I mean, different types of funding and different types of events is how we look at different corporations and aspects to it, which brings us to that next slide. So what type of funding are you looking to raise? If you want to move it to the next one, Sandra. So that's exactly what I just said. Different events mean different funding sources. So I just put a quick sample out here. So if you're holding a banquet or a gala, you're going to go to your corporates, you're going to go to your chambers, you're going to go to a lot of those individuals, especially depending on the pricing at the tables. And that's where they're going to want visibility. That's where if you've ever put on a banquet, that's where they're going to want their names on t-shirts, on signage, on everything else. And so that means you talk to them a little bit differently. And the banquet may be supporting the scholarships, but if you're doing individual scholarships and giving out, that's where that heartbeat comes from. That's where that why really comes from. The banquet's going to be the visuals. So your corporates are going to look more towards visuals. Your scholarships are going to be the individuals. Our corporations also, universities, they're going to see that as an important aspect to it. And then the naming of the scholarship, they're going to look at that as well. Now for program development, so for, like Laura stated before, for operational funding, that's where you're really going to hit your foundations. That's where you're going to hit your community foundations, because they're going to be able to look a little differently at your organization. They're going to ask different questions. That's where your metrics are going to start coming into play. And because most foundations will not fund a table at a banquet, won't fund giveaways or scholarships. That's not what they're there for. I think it was Blendina and then Aranda. I'm sorry. I'm all like, it's been a long day. Y'all have your hands raised. Yes. Who wants to go?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to lower it.
Oh, okay.
So a question, what are some of the examples of community foundations that you're referring to?
So community foundations are usually going to be a group of private family foundations who come together to put their money together and to give in more lump sums. So that's going to be, community foundation, they're all going to have community foundation in their name. And I think are y'all in Corpus or RGB?
Corpus.
Yeah, Corpus. I think it's the Greater Corpus Community Foundation. I'll have to look and see. But mostly what they do is that they have, most of your community foundations have specific areas that they give. Most of them are going to have some type of educational component to it. Corpus Community Foundation might have more of an environmental slant, especially coastal. There, I've seen a lot of our environmental foundations concentrate in Corpus and Galveston, especially in protecting the coast. And there are ways that's what they'll fund. So the community foundations have a particular subset that they'll fund too. And the way to find that out is it's really difficult. Finding foundations, especially these family private foundations, oftentimes are in secret. They don't have websites. They don't have people. It's just who you know. And it's usually the family members that invite different organizations, or a family member is involved in an organization that they fund. So.
And I know Facebook, if you have a data center in your area, they're doing the community grants right now. Community, I forgot. They just opened it last week.
Mhm.
What was that called that you said, Sandra?
Facebook, the community, I think it's a community grant.
Events.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's all throughout Texas.
Yeah, I
That
think,
might be.
I can't remember where they said the area.
Mhm. Yeah.
Data center, you called it?
Data center.
Mhm.
I know we have one here in Fort Worth, and they give like 20 grants around that every
Mhm.
year.
And that's online?
Yeah, look up Facebook and then community grants.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so
And also on the scholarships, like in Fort Worth, we do individual scholarships, like say, like I recognize, I do a scholarship because of my friend that died of domestic violence when we graduated from high school.
Mhm.
So we have, if 10 people donate $500, those first 10 people are matched by HWNT. So it becomes $1,000 scholarship.
Mhm.
So those are individual scholarship in memoriam or in honor of somebody.
Mhm.
That's a good opportunity to get your members involved.
Mhm. Yeah, and one of the things about, especially when we start talking about capacity building grants, what they're looking for is matching grants. So, and what I mean by matching grants is that one foundation, they're going to ask you, one foundation gave you X number of dollars. Okay, well, we see that they have faith and they believe in you. So we're going to give you another, matching grant to that. So we'll give you the same amount for right now and see how you do. And that's, again, a progression of a relationship with those foundations, with those organizations. Same thing with a lot of the corporate organizations. I know that we've built up those relationships at a statewide level with Coca-Cola and with HEB that have been our founders for such a long time. I got to remember, we were funded in the beginning by a beer company. And so it's not hard to get money from them as well. And so I think that a lot of times we forget that because we make these rules and regulations and we're education, but there are.
Hey, we get Tito's money.
We do get Tito's money. I love, yeah. So why not? So the next slide that I have is, especially when you're looking for funding sources, is I can't explain this enough, is you've got to research. And so what I've done, and especially in your communities, so this is why it's important to go back first to your board members and inventory them and see who they know. Then you look at your area, your city, your county, your regional area. What are the big organizations, corporations that are in that area? You got to research what are they funding? And so if you've also got a United Way, most areas, especially in Texas, have a United Way of their region or their city. It's good to go talk to them also and say, hey, we've got these scholarship programs. They can easily put you in touch with other people. They won't do the matching for you. They might have a grant for you also. It's hard to get in, but it's that continual conversation. It's also looking to recruit members. So our members are, as y'all stated before, is one of our biggest assets. And it's easier if a member is saying, hey, I'm a member of this organization. I'm also an employee of United Way, and we like to have conversations on how can we help this organization. Now, also law firms. This is another place where I think funding gets lost a lot of the time. Law firms will definitely, especially some of the larger law firms, will give a lot of good funding available, but one of their attorneys has to be a member of the organization. So not only are you auditing your board, but you're auditing your membership. So when we put in all of our members' information in there, it's good to look at that every now and then and see if there are people from large corporations or individual corporations that would be good to be able to say, hey, we've been trying to get into, let's say we've been trying to get into BNSF. Who on our roster works for BNSF? Who on our roster works for, what's one of the big energy companies? XTO. Who in your area works that's a member right now of HWNT that we can create a story with? Or ask them, hey, can you put me in touch with this person at your company? The only thing they can say is no. And be like, nah, but they can give you a referral. And then it's just research, research, research. There is no one-stop shop place for us to find foundation money. The other way that I cheat, which a lot of fundraisers do, is finding other organizations like you, other nonprofits, and seeing who their sponsors are. Who sponsors them? Who is continually sponsoring education? Who's continually sponsoring mid-career development? Who is sponsoring leadership development? And so you can look at a local and a state level for those things. And once you start looking and seeing what foundations there are, then you can start on down, like doing the Google research and be like, oh, who's this? Who's this family person? Who are the big family names in your area? Every city has a story. And so, and especially, I like to tell the story of the King Ranch area as well. Kingsville, there's several big families there that have big foundation dollars. Nobody knows who they are. And so they go through, but they are able to really move the needle on some of those funding. Also getting your city council members, they know those foundation members too. And so they can be like, well, hey, have you talked to this person? Have you talked to that person? Every council member, regardless of political affiliation, wants to see an education program, wants to be able to put that through. And so let's start, like, they may not be able to directly fund or to be able to get city dollars. I'll say you want to be careful with city dollars. That comes with a lot of reporting requirements. But they might be able to say, hey, we work with this foundation, or have you talked to this foundation person? So it's those same circles. And especially for our RGV, maybe by San Antonio people and our Corpus, your junior leagues are going to look a little different than our junior leagues up here. They might be a little bit more amenable, but looking at their funding also, who's helping, how are they helping to fundraise? And so it's a lot of research, but sometimes it's well worth it, especially as you're talking to people. Also, I mean, especially if you're looking at, we already know Coca-Cola sponsors a lot of educational funding. Who else out there does educational funding in your area? Okay. Sandra, if you want to move to the next one. So
Yep.
when I do my research, I always put together an Excel spreadsheet or some type of spreadsheet that shows, that helps me to be able to realize, okay, when are the next things coming up? And also because a lot of these grants or applications are on a rolling basis, they typically do a spring and a fall application. Sometimes they'll throw in a summer one. And so I usually just have a grant plan where I have the name of the funder, the open dates of the application, because a lot of the time, once you start researching it, you'll find out, oh, dang it, we just missed that deadline. We just missed, but I just found out about it. Well, typically there's going to be another one. And then you can start working through for the next grant. And then every funder has its own particular purposes. They'll give you a list through of what their purposes are and what they fund. Also, one of the biggest ones, fundraising, that a lot of people kind of sleep on are all your banks. All your banks have a federal requirement called a CRA, which is the Consumer Reinvestment Act, Consumer Reinvestment Act. And this came out of the bubble burst because of the way that the banks were regenerating loans. So what the federal government did is there's a particular fund that the banks have to utilize in order to give back to the community. Now that's typically going to be in the place of financial education. So your bank always is going to want logo recognition. They're always going, but they're also a good place to go for any freebies or things that you need. It's a good place to go for the LIP students also, because they're going to want to do some type of education aspect for it. But they have to spend that funding on community. And recently, the federal government allowed them to use CRA money for infrastructure investments and for other educational opportunities. They're not going to fund scholarships. They're not going to, they might use different dollars to fund a table or to purchase a table at an event. But it's really trying to figure out, okay, what's the best bang for your buck on this one? So this is where you talk to their development person and finding out where the bigger dollar comes from for them. And you can hit them several times. But the banks are always going to have a rolling application. So meaning you can apply at any time, or they'll have, for specific grant purposes, they'll have a particular grant period from that. So that's where I usually put in the purpose of the grant and the date of the application. Angelita?
So when you're going to the bank and you're going to ask them if they have this application, is it just a grant application? Is that what you're asking for?
They will mostly have it on their website.
They do? Okay.
Yeah. For the banks, it's more identifiable because they're either going to have it in their bottom sitemap plan, and it's usually going to say community investment or community engagement. And so, or they'll put Community Reinvestment Act. And so it's more identifiable, or it'll be part of their foundation. So for most of the corporations, your keywords are going to be community engagement and or foundation.
Okay, I have another question. So I know, like a couple years ago, I don't know if this is what's happening this year, but I know we had like AT&T donate some money. And from what I remember, we weren't necessarily allowed to ask for funding from our local AT&T. Is that still how things are going? If they're going to sponsor us at the state level, we can't ask them for funds locally?
I think it depends on what I remember I was there at the state level when that happened. I think it depends on what you're asking for. For right now, we haven't got anything from AT&T. We're still trying to find, because the person that was there has left. So we're trying to find a new contact to get more funding for the LIP program, obviously. But I would say, as long as it's not, a big ask, you should be able to ask locally.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and that's where you can work with the chair, with Sandra or Sandy, and your local chairperson to see, like, okay, what do you have going on? Should we go to this meeting together? Should we be on the Zoom together? Those types of questions, and moving forward. I think that it allows that opportunity to be able to create those relationships. Because one of the things, the biggest thing about development fundraising, we talked about why, we talked about story, but it really is a relationship with the corporation and or individual or the foundation. The foundation really wants to be able to have that relationship with you and your organization.
Yeah, a perfect example, because like I said, right now we don't have a contact at AT&T, but I did reach out for our local AT&T VP to see if he would get a table for our gala. So I wasn't scared to ask, because everybody has, every region has a different person.
Yeah, I know we were timid here because I remembered that they had made a donation, and I didn't know if the state, I think it was for I don't know, I think it was for the conference, and I know we didn't want to step on toes, so I'm glad we got that cleared up, so we know we can ask for
just
a little bit.
Yeah, feel free to ask, the state whenever you have a question like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And the last thing on this kind of sample plan is in order for continuity and continuance, it's good just to have this as maybe a Google Doc that you share with your board to go over and over again, that you can start building, so that if, because we have 2-year terms, people are moving over all the time, and this helps to be able to see, okay, what did they do or how did they apply several years ago, in case somebody asks, hey, let's, prime example, AT&T asked, did you apply for this grant back in 2 years ago, or what was your relationship before? This kind of document helps to keep that continuity going, and as an organization we want to be able to do that. So that's why I have these 2 last columns in here of the requested amount, the person it was assigned to, whoever wrote or submitted that grant, and did we win or did we lose on that grant? I mean, a lot of grants, what happens is that you may request 10,000, they may give you 1,000, but that's still a win. And we take that and we build upon that relationship over and over again. And so that's helpful. You can expand that out as much as you want and shrink it down. These are just the basics of what I think are interesting. And it also allows you to pre-plan for the following year on when those grant cycles are up, and keeps it as an alert. Angelita, did you still have a question, or you?
No, I'm okay. Let me put my hand down. My bad.
You're okay. All right. Well, so, and the last part is kind of something that we can do as a continuation of this conversation, because, development, we can't figure all that out in an hour or in 30 minutes. It's a life experience. But the basics of what goes into a grant, and these are samples. We can give samples, I can share, but typically when you're looking at a grant or grant application, many organizations are going to ask for a letter of intent or a request. And this is mostly for organizations that are new to that foundation or corporation, or that it's a new program or new giving program. So let's say for like what we saw during the winter storm, many of the foundations were giving additional money to new organizations for relief to families during the winter storm. So they asked for a letter of intent, and letter of intent is typically 1-page letter, and it's literally a letter of what you do, a paragraph of what you do, a paragraph of what you're going to use the funding for, and how much money you're requesting, what your demographics are, and how you're measuring that outcome. And they want it short, sweet, and succinct. Maximum 2 pages if they allow, but most of them I've seen have only been 1 page of an introduction. And they're going to base their decision and an invitation off of that intent letter. And so you don't want a lot of fluff in that letter. You want, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to help, and here's the number of what we intend. Once you receive an invitation to apply, they're going to send you an email to sign up on their grant portal. Most foundations, the big conversation that's happening right now is the same conversation that happened with common applications for public school entities, and that they're using a lot of the same platforms to submit grant applications. So there's several different grant application platforms that ask the same questions, and that they are placed onto one. One of the biggest ones is Bank of America. Bank of America holds a lot of different private family foundations, and they have one grant portal, but 500 different foundations on that one grant portal under Bank of America. So you can actually apply as an organization through Bank of America and look through all the foundations. And there are going to be some, I've seen some private family foundations that only fund organizations that are saving elephants, that are, you know, they're the weirdest things, but that's what that person wanted to do. But you never know. I'm all like, you can also spend an application on like, I'm going to save elephants by educating people not to, you know, make fun of them. We find spin in everything. So these are the common things that they're going to ask for in that application. So it's going to be majority contact information. So this is one of the conversations I know we've had previously because of continuity and because of email addresses. They're going to year over year, if you sign up on the contact information, contact that one person. So we have to look at a way as HWNT to really give each chapter. I think y'all do. Do y'all have an info at HWNT or something like that? I don't know if we still do. We got some work to do still. But you do want to use some type of common email. So I think it's HWNT president or something like that. On that contact information, just again, keep continuity. They're going to ask you for your demographics. They're going to ask in demographics being, you know, how many people do you serve that are, you know, your racial breakdown, how many are, what is your board? The big thing right now is what does your board makeup look like? Do you have men or women? And so as a female-oriented organization, there's ways for us to get around that, to talk about that in our note sections of that. But they're going to ask. So don't be surprised seeing those applications, because now they're all common applications. They're going to ask you how many staff members. We have none. We're 100% volunteer. You know, creating those narratives also, creating that overhead discussion. The program narrative is, I've seen it anywhere from 500 total characters, including spaces, to 2,000 words on your program narrative. So it's going to depend on the organization application itself. This is the big one, is metrics and measurements. And this is where you can be a little loose with things, because we don't always have all the tidy metrics and measurements, especially as we're looking at longevity of our students and tracking. Because we are 100% volunteer, it's hard for us to track on a long-term basis. And so, but we do have stories, and we do keep in contact with our students. We do keep in contact with our members in our membership and say, hey, you know, we have members who've been with us for since the very beginning, 36 years. We have members who are 20 plus year members. So it's looking, they're going to ask you those questions. That's how we're measuring our success, is through the number of people that we've retained as an organization that goes through. They're going to ask that question. That can be a baseline. The big question that I always get asked about, especially on a grant that people are surprised, they're asking who is currently funding you. Because they want to know their competition, but they also want to see that you as an organization have buy-in from the community. They want to see who else believes in you, and if they want to be able to fund you as well. Is this a pilot program? Is this a well-established program? That's the basis of that question. They're going to ask you, what other funding sources are you going after? Who else are you asking funding for? So don't be surprised in seeing that question. You don't have to give away the whole kit and caboodle. You can just say, we've applied to HWNT Foundation, ask them for $5,000. We're pending decision till December 2022. They don't need a whole narrative with it, but they're going to ask that question. Program budget, you're always going to have a program budget, and you're also going to have an overall organizational budget. So please be prepared to show that. And then of course, all your IRS documentation, since we only do 990 postcards, that we might be able to get away with, and those types of things. But like, Liliana said earlier, every good fundraiser has a really good template. And Miss Lupe has really, really good templates for HWNT. So she can definitely help support on those and the way that she's written about HWNT before and talking about. Now for your individual chapters, of course, you're going to have to tweak those to fit your story. And work through. Other things that you'll see on the application is, inspiring story of the program. How has the program worked in your community? And so those are the things where you can get those amazing wordsmiths, those individuals who love to talk and who love to write, to be able to help shape a narrative. That's the basics of grants and development. And I'm open to questions and to parts 2, 3, and 4 later on.
Oh, and I think I mentioned to Liliana, the Amazon Smiles. Sign up for that. Facebook birthdays set up for that.
You'll be surprised how much those actually bring in. The Amazon Smiles, don't be surprised if you get maybe $10 throughout the whole year.
You haven't seen me shout. No, I'm just kidding.
That's true. That's true. Those kind of crowdfunding things, it works if you have a large network and if everybody engages in that, then that works. But again, $1 is $1, and we'll take $1. And
if you have, obviously, every city has Walmarts. Walmart said each manager can give money, so it's good to go to your individual Walmart with your tax information.
Yeah, and also if you have your events, it's always good, especially if it's a banquet or a lip session. You know what? Call up your local television station. Say, hey, we have this event coming, and we'd love to see you out there, and then stay on them if they do a story on you to get that link, because those links are really helpful in helping tell your story to another foundation. Be like, hey, ABC came out and did a story on us on the nightly news. Your local community station, your local PBS station, always looking for those stories too, to go on to their, each area has a part in the Texas Standard. Also, I sit on the board of KURA, And so they're always looking for additional feel-good stories in your area. Stories about your student. You can pitch a story about your student, and that helps in the fundraising process because you don't know who their funders are looking at or what funder is actually listening. So,
And if you do a newsletter, make sure to put a donate button on there.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of your any place where you shop, they probably have a foundation or a type of giving program. Any place you eat would always be willing to give a gift card. So that's why I say when it depends on what you're looking for, that's how you structure out your giving.
And another good place to network and hand out business, your card, HWNT card, will be chambers of commerce, because you don't know. First of all, you can recruit members and potentially recruit funders.
Always.
Yep. I think there was another one where I know we're working with Frost Bank because they send us what they like, what kind of an example, what they want to, I propose it to look like. So we're working, Sandy and I are working to potentially get Frost Bank to be like a state sponsor. I know they do Fort Worth right now, but they gave us a sample of what they would look like. Want us to submit. So we're looking at putting that together through the state. So hopefully that comes through. We have a lot of things we're working on. We're trying to get y'all some money for the LIP program.
Yeah. Things to keep on hand that y'all can always just especially for a grant application, is a member story, and then B, a student story. Things that y'all can grab quotes out of that really easily and fast. All right, ladies, I know it's 7:15. I'm all there. Yeah, people.
Any questions? Because maybe we'll plan a grant one. The next one.
Yeah, I would like to have a grant writing one. I feel like in Corpus, we don't have enough of that representation. Our board has been very much circulated, kind of just going around the circle. So I think that would be really helpful. Maybe some training for our entire board to be present to let them know that even if you're not very good at asking in person, there is a way that you can assist us. There's a lot of ways that you can still help. So I think that would be very good to have.
Yeah, and if y'all want to sit down and do an individual chapter grant writing session, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yes, I request, please. That'd be perfect. Me, Shawty's.
She's like, hold on, get my contact from Sandra. And so, yeah. I mean, that's a little bit longer. That's going to be like a 2-hour session. But I think that's an important aspect for y'all to start trying to figure out in framing. What is it that you're looking for as an organization, and your story? You can get down your stories.
That sounds great. I'll make it like we have to attend, all of us.
I think we were talking about visiting Corpus, Amanda.
Are we visiting? I'm more than happy to go take a road trip.
Yes.
I'm triple shot ready.
I'll take y'all out.
Sandra, I had a question for you. So you were talking about how you have your donate button on your thing, on your whatever it's called. Where do you guys set that up to go to?
Usually your account.
But like, how do you set it up? Like, that's what I want to know.
I can put you in touch. I can put you in touch with our IT chair, technology chair, and she.
Yeah, I just want to know. Liliana had asked to set that up. The only problem is because there's so many avenues for people to donate. We have a Cash App, we have a Square, we are getting a Zelle, and so I'm just wondering which one, like how you're working it. I don't know, so that's why I had a question about that. But yeah, if you want to give her my email, and just have her message me, or if you want to either or, that way I can figure that out because I still haven't figured that part out.
Okay.
We need it.
So where is this donate button? Is it on your website or is it in Facebook?
Well, we have it on our website. Well, Fort Worth has it on the website, and also we have it on the state. And then we put it on our newsletter whenever we do the newsletter.
Let me
Okay,
look
Besides
at
the
your.
membership button, you can do a donate button.
I think we're interested in getting one too for our part of the website.
Let me look at your website really quick to see where it goes, because on our website we don't have to worry about that. Our IT girl is gonna figure that all out. But on our newsletter, I just for the life of me cannot figure out how to set that
Put it
up.
in the chat, Angie.
Oh, okay. Hold on, let me look. Oh,
I can forward you
okay.
the newsletter so you can see
Oh,
what it looks like.
I see it. It's through PayPal.
Got it.
Okay, I got it. But yes, I'll still contact her to see.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds
That helps
good.
me.
Any
Learned a
other?
lot, ladies.
That sounds like we have a grants workshop to put on.
Yes, like for real.
Well, you guys can just come to Corpus and do it for us then, since
Oh
you
my
want to make
God,
the
that'd
road
be
trip.
fun. That would be fun. I'll have food. We'll have
It
food.
can be one
ready.
of our, it can be one of our membership development meetings or something. We can kind of spin it.
That would be really cool. And that way we can kind of like see who wants to nominate to do this. 2 people. Because yeah, I don't want to be a one-person thing.
Yeah, getting our
Yeah.
members.
No, none of these grants are one person, especially for our individual chapters, our organizations. Like this is, I remember as we talked about in the very beginning, this is also a board project too, and a board responsibility. So we have to think about it in those terms. And again, you know, if you get pushback from board members and say, hey, they're going to ask you the same thing on some of these other bigger boards, bigger nonprofit organizations. So it's a reality of where we are as an organization.
And it'll be a bigger responsibility on one of the other boards. People should know that it comes with a financial commitment, and it comes with a lot of work having to fundraise. Yes. Questions, Miss Sandy? You joined us.
I know, I just saw her.
I'm sorry. Of course, you know, you've got somewhere you want to be at a certain time. My poor dad, he was having car trouble. He had a dead battery. And so I'm the one with the AAA card. And so you have to be with the car until they get there. So anyway, I was dealing with trying to get my 82-year-old father home. But they come on site and they check it and the battery was bad and they right there put in a new battery. And so we don't have to like take it anywhere. I'm telling you, I've been a member of AAA for God knows how many years, but they come through all the time.
Single girl's best friend. That's I've always said that. I was like, that's the best $176 I've